Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this virtual webinar with we've got an esteemed lineup of alumni. And I guess, firstly, I want to say my thanks to, the team at the University of Hull at Lodestone Communications for getting this set up. And then ultimately, thank you to Patrick, Emmanuel, Fola, and Serah, who will be introducing themselves shortly. But I guess see this as like a discussion and, us talking about our experiences as Black individuals in the spaces that we're in. And I guess the theme of this is that we want to communicate to ourselves if we were in our first year, second year, third year of university. And what would we want to tell ourselves at an event like this? Because we all have our stories. We've all been through a fair amount to get to the positions that we're in, but we didn't do it alone. The people on this panel, they played a part in me getting to where I am, and I played a part, and I hope I played a part in, being with them as well. And really, that's what we're wanting to cover today. So we have a chat box function, we have a Q&A function. So please, if you have any questions, please do ask, because I guess the first rule, or the first thing I would say is the questions that I wish I'd asked, I didn't. But so honestly, just see this as a safe space that you can ask these questions. Just to ensure smooth running, the way that we're going to run this webinar is we are going to give like a brief overview of our time of studying at the University of Hull and going forward into starting our respective careers. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. We have some pre-prepared questions sent in advance. Thank you for that. And then we've also got some discussion topics as well. But as I've said before, if you have any questions whatsoever, please do ask, because again, this is the space that we want to see this as a start of building your own network and getting through this. And just be aware that this also is also being recorded for anybody who can't join us live. But yeah, so I'll start it off with myself. So my name is Charles Ashie, and I'm currently a trainee solicitor at Decker in London. And I studied at the University of Hull from 2014 to 2017. I studied law with politics, and yeah, it was definitely a nerve-wracking environment. I had a lot of support around me, but I guess I knew that grades was key, but at the same time, learning how to build my network. And I guess the University of Hull did, to have the people on this panel here to play a part, that was really beneficial. But at the same time, I was terrified. I didn't think I had what it takes to get into start my career. And I kind of saw those 3 years at Hull of building my network, going to events where possible. And with the support of certain organizations, I would be able to go to, law firms for the first time. But again, I was still terrified. But being able to, work in these spaces and study in these spaces, I then pursued a master's in innovation technology and the law at the University of Edinburgh. And again, I was still, terrified. I was still nervous. But I went through the process. And one of the things that I did was the commercial awareness competition with aspiring solicitors. And through that, after winning it, I was able to, obtain work experience, which led to my training contract at Decker. And I guess throughout that whole process, it all started at Hull. And that's what we're wanting to cover today is what did we do at Hull that we would want to tell you all. Because yeah, it wasn't easy, there was a lot of barriers, a lot of fears, like, do I have what it takes? Do I know how to, network or build that network? But doing that at the same time as studying, working, and again, building mentors, people who I could rely on, that was something that, I was able to do up to me starting, just started in my first seat in complex commercial litigation, and obviously studying the LPC, which I did just before I started studying it at the time after George Floyd's murder, was pretty intense, because at the same time as this unrest and how I felt and the difficulties of going through that process, at the same time as having to deliver the grades that we needed, the grades that I needed, it was difficult. I'll be honest, it was difficult. But because of the people that we have on this panel and because of the mentors and network that I had, that was a support system that I was able to build. And this is the support system that we're wanting to create in these spaces. So that's all I'd like to say for now. And we'll hopefully be discussing more on these topics later. But I guess let's pass on to Emmanuel Olawore, and you tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Firstly, thank you for joining. So a bit about myself. My name is Emmanuel. I studied in Hull from 2013 to 2016. I did straight law, and then I went on to do a master's at UCL in corporate law. And I'm now at DLA Piper in my third seat, which is, again, corporate law. My first seat was in project finance, and my second seat was in corporate crime. So I guess to start off with, and to echo what Charles said, I think the main thing for me was when I studied at Hull, I saw it as almost like a launching pad for my career. And it was a really great opportunity to, as Charles said, network with other people and like-minded people, and kind of almost bounce ideas off each other and kind of bounce information off each other about different firms and just the process. I think the first thing I'll say is one of the important things it taught me, or one of the important things I learned when I was in Hull, was how to choose a firm. And that's because not firms look for the right candidate, but it's also you that's supposed to be looking for the right firm. And one of the things I struggled with when I was a student was, how do you tell the difference between different law firms? Because from their web pages, a lot of them seem the same. They seem that they do the same work. They seem like they've all got awards for quite a long list of awards. So one of the things that I found was kind of the culture, and being able to find a firm that, one, has the same values that you identify with, but also, two, something that will allow you to really grow and progress as a lawyer. The other thing I'd like to mention for now is about kind of just building your network. I think that's one of the most daunting things I found as a student, because it was so foreign to me. I think the first time I went to a law firm, I remember me being in the corner on my phone just because I didn't know what to do, or I didn't know how to network. And I think for me, it then became a fact of almost faking it till you make it. That's a big thing that resonated with me. And I think that's because I didn't feel like I belonged. So I realized that I'd almost have to step out and put myself in the shoes where I'm forcing myself out of my comfort zone in order to make those networks. And I think one of the big factors was that the legal industry is based on networks. So it's about as much as about what you know as who you know. And I think that's something we'll be touching on the panel today. And the last thing I'll mention is it's quite important to find your unique selling point. I think you almost need to see yourself as like the CEO of your own business. And what are you trying to sell, or what are you trying to portray to these firms when you're applying? Is something that is key, and I think it's something that everybody here did, and how helps everybody here develop in terms of what aspects or what strengths they have and what they'd like to bring across to the firms. I think that's all I'll say for now. I'll pass it to Serah.
Hi, everyone. So I went to Hull between 2013 and 2016. So I graduated in 2016, after which I went to Bristol to do a master's in commercial law. And this spring, I was supposed to do a vac scheme Whiting case, but of course, due to COVID, it was moved to September. I ended up finishing in September, virtually, of course, and I was offered a training contract at Whiting case. I think the three main things I've said I wanted to cover were things I thought were particularly important for me when I was applying. like throughout the whole process of gaining a training contract. The first was something that I thought was probably my strongest aspect of my application was the fact that I laid a solid foundation while I was at Hull. So for me, that was first getting a good degree coming out of Hull. And second was making sure that I have a very strong wealth of experience, which I gained through extracurricular activities. I was quite involved with the Law Society there, participated in the competition and pro bono schemes as well. And there were also some schemes that the university itself offered, like there was a collaboration that I did with the Citizens Advice that I took part in my final year. And there was also the law clinic, which was really helpful. So all this experience I felt that I took away from Hull made me stand out really strongly as a candidate when I was applying to law firms. So that if there is one thing I want you all to take away from this is uni can be fun, it's great, but you have to remember, like Emmanuel said, it's the starting point for you. What you do in those 3 years will impact the rest of your career, believe it or not. So if there is one thing, just make sure that you leave Hull with no regrets. Have your fun, but make sure that you've literally exploited every opportunity the university can offer you. So the second thing I'd like to cover is psychological and economic barriers. And this was probably my biggest obstacle. I am not the most confident person. I'm not very outgoing. And the fact that being Black, working class, state educated, all of that was something that I knew counted against me when I was applying. And it was something that everywhere I go, I carried it. I was just in my head that, oh my God, do I fit into this firm whenever I attend the VAC scheme? I mean, the open days. So it's not even something that I can say I'm 100% over, like I've gone over it. But I felt like attending events like with aspiring solicitors and also like events where Brian Cave has this Race for Change event for just Black for Black candidates. So attending events like that and meeting Black solicitors, some of them like partners, managing partners at the city firms really boosted my confidence and just made me think like if they can make it, so can I. So seeing people that look like you can really do a lot when it comes to overcoming those psychological barrier because firms are aware that they do not have a very strong when it comes to diversity, they're not very good. Historically, like British like law firms, they're not very good. They don't perform well. So they are aware and they're trying to improve that. But because we do not have many role models to look forward to, people like Black people, we just think this is not for us. And that can be like, we don't even bother to apply because we don't consider these firms. So that could be a huge psychological barrier that I found that many of you will face when applying to law firms. Second is also economic. If you're in Hull, very far away from London, a lot of this where these firms are based, that would mean traveling. And the cost of that for students, student life is hard. Financially, the amount of time I was broke at uni, ridiculous. So that is something that I struggled with, especially when I was at Bristol. But thankfully, a lot of this room, like I said, they're aware of it. And you can reach out and they do reimburse your travel expenses. And if you think you can't even afford to pay it upfront, you can reach out to them to ask for them to cover that. And many of them are receptive to that. Or you could find alternative, cheaper means of transport. That could be coach. Like this is something that when I was at Bristol, I'm not sure if Emmanuel remembers, we did the commercial awareness workshop together at Hogan Lovells. And because it was really expensive getting the train ticket to London, and unfortunately for that workshop, the travel expenses were not being reimbursed. This meant I had to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning to get a coach, just so I could get to London by 8 o'clock. So you have to understand your own weakness and try to find a way to just navigate and overcome it. So if that meant waking up ridiculous hours in the morning to just get a coach, long journey to London, just be prepared to make that sacrifice because the end result is really worth it. So I think the third one, which I'll probably cover in more detail, even if you have more questions, is commercial awareness. I didn't really know what this was. it was something that I struggled with. And many advice that I saw were like, perhaps choose two commercial stories and follow them. That didn't really work for me. And I felt like it's not really something you could just cram in and try to like very last minute. It's something that you have to build up. So if there is anything you could take away from today, is start gaining commercial awareness, start listening to podcasts. Like if you have Spotify, there are lots of commercial podcasts there, like Business Daily, Money Talks. Just start listening to them when you're maybe in the library. It's something that it's a way of thinking, and you have to start developing that right now to make it easier for you when it comes to applying. So I think that's all for me at the moment. I'll pass on to Patrick.
Thank you, Sarah. And hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure to have all of you. Yes, I started studying at Hull from 2014 to 2017. I also studied straight law with all the others. I think, and just by way of another brief background, coming from someone from low socioeconomic background, first learning how to read and write at 10, it was quite a challenge to even get to Hull at the first place, even get to Hull through clearing. And I think one of the thing, I had really good advice, I think, in my first year, luckily. Actually, a solicitor told me there's two ways for you to approach this career. You need to first focus on A, your academics, and B, your legal career. And I'm going to expand on those two things really briefly. So with that in mind, I mean, focusing on my academics, I ensure that whilst being at Hull, I strive to, get the best grades as possible. And this this is important, I think, for all of you. I mean, being Black in the UK, there's so many barriers for you. And I think one of the ways to actually distinguish yourself and to stand out from the crowd, from people who are even, for example, in Russell Group universities, very elite universities, for example, I'm going to talk to you about my experience at Durham later on, who have maybe a slight advantage in terms of the quality of advice they're getting and just the network which they're exposed to, which you do not have. And I feel like it is something which I think is very, very important for you to do. And if you're in your first year, whether you're second year or your third year, I will really emphasize focusing on your academics. That's really, really, really important. Whether that means finding people who are like-minded, people you can work with, exchange ideas. I remember exchanging ideas with Charles, Emmanuel, Fola, and all those people at university, because it is very, very important. A career in law is about how you think, your ability to learn new things, because you're going to learn a lot of things while you're a trainee, even an associate. It's about how quickly can you learn that material. So I think it's very, very important for you to focus on those things. And luckily, I think we all focus on those things. So I think that's really, really something to really take note of. Just expanding on the second point, like studying at Durham, again, the opportunities which people are exposed to there. I mean, you have law firms approaching people instead of people approaching them. And the students are actually spoon-fed information which would be harder for you to get based on where you're based in the north, very far from the city. So I think, again, just reflecting on that, it's really important for you to really focus on your academics to actually stand out and be able to compete with these set of people who are very different from you, and their circumstances are very different to yours. So that's one of my big takes when actually reflecting on my experience in Hull. And looking at the second point regards to work experience, I think is very important for you to, I think what really helped me was to actually try to get experience everywhere. And whether you're looking at even locally in your community, it could be a business, you might actually go there to do an internship. It doesn't have to be law, you have to start small. For example, I remember starting I applied for actually a role with a criminal firm in Hull, and I was rejected because I had no experience. But after actually just taking some little experience in Cambridge here, I was able to secure an internship at Freshfields, then Hogan Lovells, and most recently I actually travelled to Switzerland and Luxembourg to assist the US government on the case for like half a year. So those opportunities become from just starting small. You don't have to think big. You don't have to apply directly to a magic circle firm for an internship or a VAT scheme. You can literally start small. So no opportunity too small. And I think that's really something people really undermine. And you should really, really take advantage of every single opportunity that comes before you, whether it's just a commercial setting, which you happen to work in, or whether it's actually working for a law firm if you're lucky enough to get one in. So those are the two things which I will emphasize. We'll talk more about the rest later on in the Q&A session. But my key things for you, I would say, at this stage in your life, whether in your first or second or third year, is really focus on your grades and try to get the best you can from your lecturers and your friends, and also try to look at how you can get legal experience. So you can actually strengthen your application when you're applying for a training contract or you're pursuing a career at the bar later on. That'll be all for me. And I'll pass you over to Fola.
Right, yeah, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming along. It's a pleasure to be here. So I graduated from Hull in 2017 and I did straight law. And then after that, I qualified in Nigeria. Then I did an LLM at UCL in law and economics. And now I'm working at a law firm called Ashie in Nigeria. So in terms of just tips that I have, that I would give myself if I was a student at Hull, I think first and most important thing is making the most of your time at Hull. And that's on all fronts, not just in terms of grades, but also in terms of people you meet and, being able to network. And I think, especially with networking, it's important to not only just network with people in the profession you're going to, so law in our case, but also networking across different faculties in the uni. So friends in finance, friends in business, or and friends in economics, because you never know where they will end up and you have those contacts. And also networking within the faculty as well. I think that's very useful, especially for creating a support network. I know for me, looking back on my time at Hull, I would not have, gotten the grades I did, or definitely wouldn't even be here where I am today if not for the people I met during my time there, and the friends I made, and the support network I was able to create. And I think it's also very important, especially during your time at university, because I think this will definitely prepare you for your career. I think it's important to really just internalize where it is you want to head in the future. So really asking yourself, look, where do I want to be 5, 6, 7 years down the line? And just focusing on that during your time and being intentional about your own personal career path and taking full responsibility for that. I think doing that, then it allows you to focus on, seeking opportunities, meeting the right people, and just putting yourself in the best possible position for that. And throughout my, since I've left Hull, I've realized that there is one disadvantage that I had from being at Hull, and that's the fact that there is ultimately a visibility problem. From students at the University of Hull face a visibility problem because having been at UCL, and Patrick sort of touched on this as well, the students there, you have the top law firms pretty much come to their doorstep and meet them for networking events and for dinner and things like that. And students at Hull don't have those opportunities. And I think getting involved in with organizations like aspiring solicitors and their commercial awareness competition can be a very good way to sort of bypass that problem and, put you in the best position to, get around the disadvantage of not having the visibility. I think also another, so I'll just touch on being at or working in a Nigerian law firm. So when I was studying at Hull, there were quite a lot of Nigerians in my year, and we were all sort of looking to go back to Nigeria and to make a difference there. And initially, I was a bit reluctant, but I came back. When I came back for my master's, I had a conversation with the managing partner at Brian Cave, Leighton Paisner, that Serah just mentioned, that they host a Race for Change event. I had a managing partner with the managing partner. I had a conversation with the managing partner there, Segun Oshuntokun, and what he actually mentioned, about going back to Nigeria and working there really stood out to me. He said that when he was making the decision to choose between working in Nigeria versus working in London, the Nigeria then was a completely different Nigeria, and there weren't the same opportunities. The quality of law firms wasn't the same. But if he was to make the same decision now, he would choose Nigeria because the legal system has advanced so much, the economy has advanced so much, there's opportunities, you get to work with world-class lawyers, and that sort of inspired me to go back, and so far so good. It's been worth it. So yeah, so on that, I'll pass back to Charles.
Great, thanks, Fola. Thanks everyone for again giving a nice, candid intro as to your background and at Hull and after Hull as well. I can't lie, we've been getting a lot of questions. I think the one of the most popular ones that I feel like we've addressed early on with Fola and Patrick's answer, but if Emmanuel and Serah, if you want to comment, is what would you say your masters did for you? And again, we're talking to a student, what advice would you give them in terms of doing a master's or other alternatives? What would you say that did for you? But how did you come to that decision at Hull? So yeah, if Emmanuel, do you want to spend a bit of time on that? And then Serah.
Yeah. So around the time where I was approaching the end of my experience at Hull, and knowing my interest was more so in corporate law, I wanted to do a master's, not necessarily because I thought it would give me, it'd be a route to a training contract or anything like that. It was more so because this was an area of law that I was really, really interested in. So and a bit of background, I did my modules were in international finance, M&A, corporate governance, and restructuring. And those are aspects of law that I didn't really get to touch on as much as I would have liked to. So I think for me, almost the obvious next step was to do a master's. One thing I do think is that, and I agree with Fola and Patrick completely, is that it's definitely I think the benefit, or one of the benefits I realized whilst I was there, being completely honest, was the fact that the number of law firms at the law fairs. So whilst I was at UCL, the law fair went on for 2 days with around probably 40 law firms or more each day. And I think just that exposure and just being able to go around the corner essentially and see all these law firms was easier. With that being said though, I don't think that is the only way to get in touch with these law firms. It's a very expensive way to contact law firms if that's what you wanted to do. But again, it's not the only or right way even. I think, and I'm not sure if any of the panelists would echo this, but something I was told by graduate recruitment, that the masters had no influence in their decision to hire me. I think the main thing for the masters, it gave me access, and I think something I'll touch on a bit later on is the fact that other ways in which you can reach out to these law firms. And I think a perfect example is us here. We're really willing, and I think that's quite obvious by the fact that we're here. But if you did want to follow up or anything, and I don't mean to speak for everybody else, but I'm sure they'd agree that we're on LinkedIn and you can feel free to contact us, because the way it works in this industry is almost like you get helped up by somebody and then you go and help the next person up. And I think that's the way we'll see will change in terms of people from Hawaii and Black people in general entering these spaces.
Yeah, I think I pretty much second all of that. We did have this discussion last night and regarding the masters, and I fall on the side that the masters itself, like the degree itself, doesn't really do much. It doesn't, from the firms I've interacted with, they don't care. They're more focused on your undergraduate degree and what you got in those. So studying the masters in itself does not give you a leg up. But the reason I chose to do, there were three reasons really. The first was I was quite late when it comes to choosing commercial law. I didn't really know much. So it wasn't really until third year. But before I make the decision to choose it, like in terms of a career, I thought maybe I should try it and learn more academically to see if I like it and, you know, maybe get to meet some law firm. So, and that, which leads me to my second reason. I wanted exposure to law firms in the city. And that was, I think, probably the major driving force in my decision to further my study. It isn't expensive. It isn't expensive because you shouldn't have to pay thousands of pounds a year just so you can get access to a law firm. But it will be dishonest to say that that's not why. But like Emmanuel said, there are alternatives. For I think someone mentioned when we were talking last night that Hull is quite close to York Uni, and York Uni being a Russell Group university, many of the law firms go there. They network with they have law fairs that you could attend as a student of Hull, and so you don't have to go all the way to London or to spend thousands of pounds doing a master's just to get access to firm. You just have to be creative and put yourself out there. Many of you are already aware that being a Hull, you do not get access to this law firm. So don't just sit down, don't just sit on that knowledge, hat on it. What are you going to do to put yourself out there to make sure that you're accessible to these law firms? And I think, so you can go to law fairs, open them, like Leeds University is quite close to Hull as well. So you can go to their law fair, and when you go there and meet the law firm, let them know you're from Hull. They will be impressed by the fact that you've come all that way. You've taken advantage of a university closer to you to meet them. It will make you stand out. So just take that opportunity. And also there's aspiring solicitors, get involved with them. They offer open days for people like if you're Black, ethnic minority, working class background. They offer open days with these law firms that you can attend. And like I said, they will, if you're concerned about in terms of paying for the transport, they will reimburse your transport to London to meet those firms. So there are institutions, there are charities and organizations that can help you when it comes to meeting law firms. You don't have to study, doing masters in a Russell Group University to do that. But I'll be lying if I say it didn't help.
Can I just quickly add something? I think also now is almost a really unique rare time because nobody's really meeting any law firms in person anymore. So regardless of where you are, if you're in Hull, if you're in London, you could be in Nigeria. It doesn't matter because everybody's accessible either on Skype or Zoom, and that's how meetings are being conducted. So it kind of gives you the perfect chance to say, hi, I would have loved to have met you in person, but due to COVID, and it may be due to COVID, it may not be due to COVID, but it'd be great to have a 5-10 minute call to discuss your journey into law and to just pick your brain on a few things. And I think that will really impress because one, it shows that you're proactive, and two, it then puts you in a position where you've met somebody, so you're one step closer to understanding the culture of the firm and being able to decide whether that firm is for you or not.
Perfect. Thanks for that. I mean, yeah. So just to just to cover off that master's point, again, if you want to link your passion with the ability to network, again, it's like Serah said, you have to be creative. You know, we're all advocates of the long game. It wasn't straightforward for us, but being at Hull allowed us to think, okay, how do I plan this strategy? So for me, again, my interest was in technology, and the simple route was to do, you know, to study innovation technology and the law, because it allowed me to build my network in the technology space. But what I would say is I'm conscious that we have gone on quite heavy onto the legal, and I'm loving the questions that we've got coming in. One thing that I would also say is, in terms of being creative, you know, when you're doing these networks, Emmanuel gave great advice in terms of just, you know, dropping that message on LinkedIn. That's what you've got to do in these spaces. You know, I would say we're in a position where you've got 5 people on this panel who are more than happy and willing to help, because we know exactly the position that we were in. And this is what we had to do. We had to travel all over the country. We had to put ourselves forward. Obviously, it's in person, so it's a bit harder, you know, having to, you know, put yourself out there and, you know, make that introduction and introduce yourself. But then now, you know, we have virtual law fairs, you know, all around. But then just to take a step back, doing that in networking in any space, whichever career you're wanting to go into, is key, because it's just a key feature of resilience and confidence. And I'm honest, and I'm going to ask Patrick for his thoughts, but the resilience and confidence that you kind of had to build, I didn't have that, you know, in first year, second year, maybe even third year. I mean, maybe even now, you know, we're still building it. But Patrick, you know, again, that first year, second year law student, how did you develop your resilience and confidence in these spaces?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I think Emmanuel made a good point about just using these spaces. I remember contacting people on LinkedIn, just literally random people who I saw that they had solicitors attached to their name, and I'll be like, you know, I'm really interested in finding out what you do, and, you know, what your experience, and how did you start, what did you find difficult, and I just learned from the experience, and never actually had to meet any of them. So I think, you know, there's so many tools that you can use. You just got to be hungry enough, and you will achieve it. I think that it's a process. So it's not something that will just come naturally. You have to learn over a period of time. I mean, I participated in the Aspiring Solicitors Commercial Awareness Competition with Charles. We were grilled and we learned, and he went again and he won. That's what I call resilience. You know, it's very, very tough, and there are going to be lots of people going out there trying to do the exact same thing as you. And I feel that experience there was something that I feel like really, really shaped me. And we went to the quarterfinals, didn't we, Charles? And we didn't win, but we worked really, really, really hard to get there. But it was not about winning, it was about what I learned in that process. How do you develop, for example, commercial awareness? The techniques that we use, for example, the ones which I used after that competition, I used those same techniques when I was doing my master's and applying to law firms. They're the same techniques I advise, you know, students that contact me on LinkedIn to ask for advice on how to develop commercial awareness and type of things. So I feel like the key thing the key to success, I would say, in terms of networking, is literally making use of all the platforms which you have. And even when things do go back to normal, I feel like even to make that typical example, which I used was, I think I reached out to someone and said, well, can I just meet you for coffee just to find out how things are going? And, you know, I met them, had a coffee, and today they're my mentor. So it just takes a little step. You just got to use your initiative to actually make use of the tools you have around you. And once you develop that relationship with people, they'll be more than willing to help you. You've just got to take that initiative, because they actually see you're passionate enough to leave from Hull, to take a train, to go down to London for a coffee. Come on. So people do think, people are conscientious of people that do make an effort. And once people see that you're really willing, you're willing to go out your way, they will actually do what they can to help you. And those same people will help me kind of look at law firms and give me advice on how to approach the application process. You know, and that's just someone you've gained through the network, through LinkedIn, for example. So I feel like despite the situation we were in, I wouldn't say there's an excuse to not network and reach out to people and create those relationships. I feel it's actually a perfect opportunity because you can meet multiple people now, not just a few.
Perfect. Thanks for that. We've covered a lot of university careers advice, and please keep the questions coming in. We've got a few, and we'll come to them in a second. But I guess similar on that resilience and confidence piece. But let's change the theme to Fola, and I'll be asking the rest of the panel as well. But you've spent a bit of time working in a firm, but at the same time in Nigeria, you've got things that are going on with SARS. And I guess my question to you is, how do you manage, again, that working environment at the same time as those cultural pressures? And for Patrick, Emmanuel, and Serah, with George Floyd's murder and the resulting protests and talks after that, how did you, one, take that in, but at the same time still have to work as hard as you can, or work as hard as you can, and still realize as a Black individual in these spaces, we have to do all the things that we've been saying. So yeah, let's follow. How have you been able to manage that? And then I'll get everybody else's perspective as well.
Yeah, no, very, very good question. So I think the first step is recognizing that this is a genuine problem. So whether it's SARS or it's George Floyd, recognizing that this is something that is likely to affect you, and you can't just carry on business as usual. You might sometimes be more restless because of it. You might be more anxious, more depressed, more upset, and just recognizing that it will affect your output, and sort of being intentional about the steps you take to fighting against that or working against it. So it could be speaking with colleagues, very likely that they're having a similar experience to you. So asking what they think, how they're going through it, how they're able to continue to do good work. Speaking to people who are outside the system as well. So friends who don't work in the same firm or work in different sectors, and hearing what their experience is like. Really just having that kind of conversation. But then I also think it's very useful to have that conversation internally as well with your superiors at the firm or company you're working at. So I know, for example, with SARS, NSARS in Nigeria, me and a few of my colleagues got together and we pushed our firm's management team to start putting efforts together to offer pro bono services to protesters who were falsely locked up. We also put some money to get food together, and doing these things, obviously, yeah, you want to primarily you're there to do legal work, but then you can also have a societal impact as well. And it really does improve the overall quality of your time at the firm, because you feel like you're having a positive impact, and it's effectively a win-win. You get to focus on the issue of the day, whether it's SARS or George Floyd, and also still do good work. And yeah, I think those are the two most important things. So recognizing that it's an issue and being intentional about that, but then also creating initiatives within your firm or company to work against it.
Serah, what would you follow on from that?
Yeah, I'll say the George Floyd thing for me came at a time when I was a lot more comfortable in my skin. Because like I said, the psychological barrier, the idea that I do not belong to the city. So I was already having attended like events like Race for Change. I was becoming more comfortable with just being in my skin, being Black. It was something that I was embracing as well. Like I was actually leaning into it. I feel like that's probably what differed with my previous application. That I was leaning to my difference, what made me stand out from my background. So when the video, when it happened, it kind of just knocked your spirit. Like you're getting over that hunch, like that blood. and then just something new happened, just reminds you of just how you're perceived in society in general. So it was a setback mentally, how I felt. But what really made me happy, and I felt like reinforced my decision with the firm I applied to, was the fact that they sent an email around. They were the first I saw doing it as well, just basically expressing the solidarity with Black people. And I did not expect that, because like, you've had this before. You've had police brutality, a Black person dies, there's riots, there's protests, but nothing's done. Like, you do not get companies or just political parties really doing anything or making any stand with the Black community. This one I felt was different. And it was that first email I got for White in Case, and I just kept seeing more on LinkedIn, more solidarity, and that really reinforced my desire to make something of myself, because I wanted to make sure that when I get into the city, I'm able to pull up those behind me, those who are from Hull, those who look like me, just to make sure that there are more of us. The more of us there are in the city, the more we can influence the decisions that these firms are making, and hopefully better the lives of Black people everywhere. So I think it was not, but seeing the response from the firm really was reassuring for me.
Manuel, then Patrick.
Yeah, it was it was a very, very distressing experience. I feel the first week there was literally no motivation to do any work. It was very, very challenging times. And because I'm currently consulting at the moment, so I've not actually started my training. There were quite a few other people in the same position, and we kind of talked to each other. We reached out and checked that everyone was doing okay. And in terms of how I feel like the employer didn't perhaps handle the situation the way we expected them, for example, sending an email acknowledging it. And we kind of got together and wrote a letter expressing our concerns, and they did, do something about it. And I think it's something which is quite important for all of us, whether you belong to a company, an institution of any form. If you are feeling a certain way, it's important for you to express how you feel, so something can be done about it, because it's not just the killing of George Floyd, it's systemic racism, which has led to this killing. And I feel like all of us have a responsibility to kind of check on each other and also do our bit to kind of prevent such things from happening from whatever level we can. I think every little kind of helps. And just going on from what Serah was saying, yeah, it is very, very important to get as many of us into such positions. That's why we're here today. We're here to help you. That's why we've dedicated time to come and help, and we'll do whatever we can in our power to help. So you just have to make use of the opportunity. I'll pass it over to Manuel.
Thanks. I think when I was going through that period, my first thought was I was kind of speechless. I didn't know what to say or what to think or what I could do. I felt, and in that sense, I felt very small, because I think one thing lawyers or even the whole training contract process teaches you is essentially how to solve problems. And for me, this felt like a problem that was almost too big to solve. And I almost had to remind myself that, like, even though I can't end police brutality specifically, or I can't address this situation, there are stuff that I can do to help that will help systemic racism. And whether that's kind of like helping someone, devoting my time and doing events like these and helping people get up. Because I think at the moment, to bring a bit of stats to it, I think the SRA said there's around 3% of Black people within the profession, and that's compared to around, I believe it's roughly around 25% of Black or BAME people in the UK. Now, once you realize that in terms of the legal industry, we're definitely underrepresented, and there's a few reasons why that could be. But for one of the main reasons that I think everybody's kind of identified is the lack of representation. And it's almost a thing where it's, can I do something if it hasn't been done before? Can I go to a place where it seems like an all boys club? And I think that's something that really resonated with me, because it's like, yes, I can do something, and it's something that was done for me. So I've got mentors who are Black, one's in Sherman and Sterling, and one's in Barclays, and they really helped me. And I think the biggest kind of barrier to overcoming things was, and one of them said to me, it's not about if you'll get a training contract, it's about when. And that really helped me change my mindset. So although I couldn't necessarily do anything about George Floyd, I did kind of commit to do my part to what I can do to help address a larger issue, which is systemic racism.
That's exactly it. No, thanks for sharing all of that, because yeah, it was difficult, you know, at the same time as studying to get into a space where there isn't that many people like you. You then see somebody that does look like you murdered, and you're still expected to deliver. And you know, because of this network, we did. And so at the same time, that's why University of Hull students or otherwise, you have to reach out to people, because if you're, you know, I was able to talk to Fola, Patrick, Emmanuel, and Serah throughout this process, or just being like, this is hard, you know. And that's why I was saying to Patrick, like, it doesn't really end in terms of the resilience and confidence, because you know, you can work as hard as you can, but you know, we're now into this space where we still have to again deliver, and all the pressure and stress that comes with that. But then at the same time, we want to make sure there's more people like us, you know. And obviously we're all in the legal profession, so we have, you know, such as Black men in law, Black women in law, you know, the Law Collective and other organizations, as well as aspiring solicitors. So you have these organizations, the first three specific to Black people, so never feel like that you are alone in this process, because it's intense, it's tough, it's intense, but with the support of each other, we've now got what, again, these four incredible panelists just being very candid with how it feels, so that you should feel the same way, so that you should have that confidence to drop that, you know, LinkedIn message, so that you can get practical advice. Because at the end of the day, the game is the game. Like, we still have to prove that we can get into these spaces. Like Patrick said at the beginning, and like Emmanuel was saying, you have to prove that we've got the grades. We still have to do that. That goes without saying. So, you know, definitely thank you for that experience, because that's what we really want to convey to students. If you're in your first year and second year, we are still feeling that same kind of way. But let's keep that, but let's have a look at some of the questions that we've been getting in. I guess, yeah, this is a good one. So let's go to, so this one was asked quite earlier from Loria, and this directed to Serah. I'm very interested in hearing more about commercial awareness. Could Serah kindly expand on this subject and repeat some of the sources for the content that she usually accesses? So on those sources, I can open that one up to the panel as well. Any sources, any things that you find useful? Because again, these things aren't just for a career in law. Any career, if you're keeping up to date with, you know, news, again, it's going to give you that leg up that we were talking about. So Serah, what's your day to day, and what prepared you for the vacation schemes at YNKs?
So like I said, it was I realized commercial awareness is more of a way of thinking about things, well, about news. Like when you see bills, when you talk about Brexit, like how is that going to affect business? Then, and if that affect business, what can law firm do in that scenario? How can law firm gain from it, or can they lose work because of it? So for me, one of the things I did was podcast. because while I was working, because I usually commute to London, and that was quite an hour commute, so I just listen to podcasts every morning, and I just make sure that was in my routine. And sometimes during the weekend when I'm cooking or in the kitchen, I just have it in the kitchen, just blasting, just listening to podcasts. And some of the podcasts, because I feel like they could be a lot more interactive. It's a lot more interesting than cracking up on the newspaper. And some of the newspaper that you probably need to read, like Financial Times, you have to pay for them. They're expensive. But with podcasts, it's on Spotify. You don't need to be subscribed to have a Spotify subscription. You can have a free subscription and you can listen to podcasts with no adverts as well. So like some of the ones I listen to are, I think I mentioned like Business Daily. I think that's a BBC podcast. And there's Wake Up to Money. I think that one's really good, especially, and it's very specific to the UK as well. And they cover a host of topic, and in some instances they do like very specific like segment, like a deep dive into a particular sector or particular news story. So just it just improve your general commercial awareness and how you think about businesses as well. So because I feel like when you're making application, commercial awareness is likely to come in two instances. First, you probably get asked something specific about the company, like, oh, what commercial news story are you listening to, and how do you think it will impact us? And this could come up maybe in application form or in interviews. With those ones, my advice when making application, just choose one. Maybe you've been following it, or as you listen to podcasts, you will get some recurring news, and one could catch your interest. So just keep following those ones. So before any interview or any application that comes, just choose one commercial story and trying to make sure that it's something that you're actually interested in, because it's a lot more fun, and it's something that you can easily talk about as well when you're in the interview if you're interested in that story, and try to relate that to the firm. Like, is there a practice area that it will be applicable to? Like, how would that affect the firm's business, or does it concern any of their clients, or maybe even the competitors of the firm's client? So is there any way they could gain some work from it? So think of law firm my business. So think of it, if I'm running this business and this news comes along and it could affect my client, how can I help my client? Which area of my business will be able to help my client? So think of commercial awareness in that way when you're reading any story. So another way commercial awareness could come up could be like case studies. When you go to open days or vacation scheme assessment center, you have commercial case studies to do. A lot of this will require you bringing knowledge, outside knowledge, and just trying to apply it to those case study on sometimes stories that you've heard, like commercial news stories, and trying to apply them to that case study. And this is probably the important one, because in the previous example I gave, you could probably just choose one commercial story, do a deep dive on it, and be able to wow them when it comes to interview. But with case studies, you need a general knowledge. You need a commercial mind in order to be able to perform well on those case studies. So that's why I say just start now. Before, you don't have to wait till application season start. Just start, get into the habit of listening to podcasts and reading commercial news. So there's FT News Briefing. They have a podcast on Spotify you can listen to as well. And there's Money Talks with Economist Radio, also on Spotify you can listen to. And if you're into tech, also listen to Pivot. That one's quite fun. It's quite interesting. So if you're interested in Twitter, Facebook, I feel like you really enjoy listening to that podcast. So, and they're also subscription. You don't have to pay for them. You just have to sign up to be receiving newsletters. So every Monday or every Tuesday, weekly newsletter. I think the best one I could recommend, especially for those applying to commercial law firm, they're very law related, is Little Law and Corporate Law Academy newspaper. So those two, they don't just tell you about the commercial news, they also tell you how it will apply to law firms as well. So how it will affect law firms. So if you're not sure how to think about how commercial news will affect law firms, they pretty much do that for you. And when you get into the habit of reading that, what you can maybe, it really helps you, because you come across in the news that they may not have covered, but using the knowledge that you gain from reading their newsletter, you're able to apply that and basically figure out for yourself how you think it will apply to law firms.
That was a very good, lots of coverage there, which is great. Fola, I know you wanted to cover something in commercial awareness in Nigeria, so do you want to fill us in on that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, no, commercial awareness is equally important for Nigerian law firms as well, even though they don't quite articulate it in the same way. But if you have that commercial awareness, it does help you to stand out. But then besides, even if you're not looking to work in Nigeria, it also helps with applying to UK law firms as well. I know Emmanuel mentioned something briefly about your unique selling point. And for me, my unique selling point was the fact that I had qualified in Nigeria. And I think, having that commercial awareness about the Nigerian space and the African space more generally just helps you to add a bit more weight behind your assertion that your unique selling point is being a Nigerian or having qualified there. So in terms of resources that I recommend, I think the gold standard or the first place to go to is Steers Business. So that's STEARS. It's been described as the Bloomberg of Nigeria, and I think that's definitely the starting point and probably the finishing point as well, because they just about cover everything. They have a newsletter, they have a WhatsApp channel, and they have a website that you can just read loads about Nigerian news, and yeah, very well written. Quartz Africa is quite good as well. They have a newsletter that goes out once a week that's also very detailed, slightly more African focused, which is still very useful, but they regularly have Nigerian columnists and writers come on and write about different news stories in Nigeria. And then if you're more interested in tech, there's Tech Cabal, which has a newsletter as well. And there's Tech Point Africa. And I'll just do a little self-plug. I also have a newsletter that goes out once a week called The Brief, and that focuses on Nigerian and African news as well. So.
Patrick?
Yeah, so just in developing commercial awareness, I mean, there's so many things you can do. Like I remember in Hull, I think the competition is still going on. There's Aspiring Solicitors Commercial Awareness Competition, which is actually a good platform for you to put what you've practiced into use and actually see how far you go with that. I really strongly encourage you to participate. It's very, very, very helpful. And one of the resources which I found very, very useful is Financial Times. It does come at a cost, but I think it was very, very useful. They write very clearly, and it actually break down some of the complex ideas in a very simple, in a way that you can actually understand. So I really, really, really recommend a subscription to the FT as possible. I know that they do discounts for students, and also the university. I know that actually in the library, they actually had copies of the Financial Times every day. So if you actually walk in, whether it's even a Sunday, you see the Sunday's FT available for you to read. So I feel like when we do return to normality, that is something which you should strongly consider. I also know that some institutions actually allow you to subscribe to the Financial Times through them for free. So you might want to check maybe with your library as well to see if that's available. Because I know that in law school we're able to access it for free because we're part of the institution. They give like a login to use, so you might want to have a look at that. And you can use the BBC as well. You don't necessarily have to subscribe, although obviously the quality of the news you read kind of differs. If you go to like Business World and the BBC website, they give resources for you to read on like companies, governments, all sorts of things. And also Yahoo Finance as well. It's quite useful. It has a list. It actually has an update on political affairs, social, finance, all sorts of things, property. So you can literally have a dig there. There's so many places that you can find that you could great new things from. And also, I think applying it as well, it's really important for you to actually apply what you learn in your assessment centers, as Sarah emphasized. You may actually just be given a case study, which for you, you might be thinking, okay, they've given me this article to read. All I need to do is focus on what's here. But actually, you can bring in knowledge from all the other things which you've read, and to actually show that you're aware beyond this case that you've given, this news here. I've read another thing somewhere which is quite similar to this, which you might want to bring in, and that will really show your commercial awareness. So it's very, very important for you to show commercial awareness and not necessarily wait for them to ask you a question specifically or what's going on here. You need to really force it on them when you get the opportunity to show that, which is very, very, very important. I'll pass it over to Manuel.
Cool. I think to start off with, I'll talk a bit about what commercial awareness is exactly, because I think that is quite a big term and it's often used. And really simply, when you're working with businesses, in most cases, I'd probably say 99% of cases, what the businesses care about is making money. And so commercial awareness is anything that could possibly affect them making money or their profits or their revenue. So that's how I kind of understood what exactly commercial awareness is. After that, so you have the FT, you have BBC. What I use, I mainly use two things. I use Finimize, which is really simple, really fun. It breaks down articles into things you can read in 3 minutes on the go. So that's quite cool. And then I also, I subscribe to the FT and BBC on Twitter. I don't really like buying the FT because it's like a really huge newspaper. And when I read it, when I was reading it on the train, it just looked ridiculous, me trying to turn the pages. So on Twitter, it's easy. Just kind of, as I see what my friends tweet about, I also see, oh, this company's went bankrupt, or this company's trying to raise money. And then the last thing I'll say is it's quite important to develop an opinion. And I think on whatever you hear about, I think one thing that one mistake I made was simply in my applications when I started just regurgitating what I had read on the FT or the BBC. And it's very easy to say, to put into other words what you've read, but it's a lot harder and it's a lot more of a skill which firms appreciate to say, okay, this is why this happened, or this is the goal that the firm or the company or whatever organization you're reading about was trying to achieve. And I think that's something that really impresses firms when you're applying.
Thanks for that. I'm sure you can see me looking at the screen, just trying to get to the questions. We're also going to type all of the commercial awareness sources and things that we've just talked about in the chat box. But I guess we want to get through as many questions as possible. And at the same time, remember, this isn't just a one and done thing. You can see our names either from the events or from Zoom. So you can add us on LinkedIn. You can ask these questions because, again, this, see this as your network. This is how we, found our network, and that's what you should do the same. And yeah, to get through some questions as possible, I'm gonna, not like a fire round, but I'm just gonna ask one person one question, and then we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna ask Fola, what was the highlight of your time at Hull?
You put me on the spot. Let me think. I would say it's probably in my final year. I had a period where I was very, I had decided that, these are the grades I need to get to, get this, to get a first. And it was really just like focusing in on those and being really strategic about what I was doing with my time and, how I was revising with different topics. And I think, like that whole period of just grinding in the library, and, I'm sure Patrick can attest to this as well, just being in the library effectively 24/7. I think it was difficult at the time, but I was filled with such a sense of purpose that I was doing something in the very important in the grander scheme of my life and in my career. And yeah, I'd say that was a highlight.
Perfect. And I guess, so the next question we got was, what advice would you give to someone, and we probably talked about this, but what advice would you give to someone who didn't receive the typical A-levels law firms want this year? And any advice, it's a simple question, but any advice on how to showcase your skills despite lower grades? Serah, what would you say on that one?
Okay, so A-levels, I feel like more recently, a lot of firms are moving away from that. They're less reliant on A-levels. They're less strict on A-levels. Not all firms, but many. I'm seeing an increase and move away from like the minimum 2 A's and B's. And I think because of what happened recently with the A-level fiasco, I think many of them have dropped it. So if you have a lower grade, then you need to compensate for that with experience. It's just as simple as that. That is everything. An A-level, you're still at uni. You can still make up for it. If your uni degree is really good, your results are good, those are more recent assessments of your intelligence and your skills. The law firms are more likely to pay attention to those than your A-level grade. So if your A-level does not meet the regular one, just trying to make sure that your degree does, and you're doing the best you can in those, like when it comes to your degree, like don't be complacent at all, and gain experience, like get involved with the law society, because I cannot stress this enough, because the law firms are looking for well-rounded people, not just people that are academically brilliant. They want to make sure, they want to see that you're getting involved at uni, you're doing extracurricular activities, because this is a really difficult career. It's really time consuming. They want to make sure that you're someone that you can balance your time. And if you're doing your degree and you've got a host of extracurricular activities and you're also working part-time, it looks good on application. It makes you a more attractive candidate than someone who's just got straight A's throughout uni but have no extracurricular activities, no life experience. So it's not just all about the grades. Make sure that you can compensate when it comes to your experience. Get involved with the law society. I cannot stress that enough, because I feel like many people take the law society in hall, like they take it for granted. There's so many activities, like I'm not sure if they're still doing the pro bono scheme, like the competitions, like 4 or so competitions that you can get involved in. And unlike my experience at Bristol, where the students were on it, there's less that means that if you want to take part in some extracurricular activities, you don't get the opportunity to do so because other people have applied to it and there's not enough space. But with Hull, you do not have that much competition. There is opportunity for you to beef up your CV by doing a lot of extracurricular activities there. So really take advantage of your time at Hull. Your A-level is gone. There's nothing you can do about it. Focus on what you can do now to make sure that you're a better candidate in the future.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Serah. I guess this one's for Emmanuel. How has your training contract been so far? Would you say it's lived up to your expectations? What seat are you in now?
Yeah, I'm in my 30s, and I guess to put it simply, I really enjoyed it. So I think in terms of the range of work I get to do, the clients I get to work with, I mean, I've worked with governments, which is something I never thought I'd get to do. I've really enjoyed it. In terms of the seats, I did project finance, which is essentially advising on the financing of oil and gas terminals. Then I did a corporate crime, which was really interesting cases. Can't really go into specifics, but things to do with fraud, things to do with bribery, corruption, and things like that. And then now I'm in corporate, which is M&A, and just the amount of information you can find out about a company and the amount of insight you can get into various sectors is super cool.
I was going to tell the team before we go for it, but I'll quickly talk about my training contract. So I started remotely, currently in complex commercial litigation, and it's different. You know, it's a hybrid model of, you know, you're working from home, and when things were, you know, Steady-O was going into the office once or twice, but at the same time, again, it's just a new way. We have to bring that resilience and confidence into what I'm doing at complex commercial litigation, and doing a variety of work, whether it's attendance notes, legal research, you know, drafting minutes, things like that. And at the same time, you're still building your network. You know, you're wanting to learn how to do the job, and at the same time, you're wanting to build your network. And the fact that, again, my firm, Deca, they've been very welcoming, but at the same time, being very supportive of my development. Again, it just makes you want to work harder and do more. But I'm definitely conscious of time, and just to, I think by the time we get around everybody, we'll be able to wrap up. So the last two questions, again, they'll be quite light, is just to round off, you know, this time. Thank you for your time. But I guess the first one is, if you could just name and give me like a brief, you know, background or description of one of your mentors and what they've done for you. And then the last one is, you know, again, let's pull it back to, you're a student at the University of Hull, you're a Black student, you've come to an event like this. What would be the one thing that you'd want them to take away from this? So to give you an idea, I'll just start with mine. So my mentor, who I actually came across at the University of Hull during my time, is Professor Chindo. He's a lecturer, he's an expert at the top of his game, and he's very much been like a senior mentor, guidance for me to get to where I am in terms of working and learning how to do what I need to do, but at the same time giving me work and giving me the opportunity to learn and get to where I am. And I guess my one piece of advice is, this is your safe space, this is your network. We've been putting our LinkedIns in the chat. Reach out to us, and we look forward to, again, having more people on this panel, or doing more panels like this with more people, or having a bigger group chat. You know, it's going strong. So Fola, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my mentor that I've had, you know, I think I met him initially, maybe my second year at Hull, and we've had follow-up conversations since then. He's actually a Nigerian lawyer. His name is Dr. Dakpo Olanipekun. And yeah, he's a great mentor. He's currently practicing. He has his own firm in Nigeria. And he also has done a PhD, which is sort of a path that I'm looking to combine. So being in academia and also practicing as well. And yeah, I think having a mentor is so important, but then also it's possible to have a mentor or role model from afar. And, you know, even though you may not be able to have that one-to-one relationship with somebody, you can sort of model your life or your career trajectory after theirs, even if you don't have that direct relationship with them. So in terms of what to take away from this event, be proactive about your career, about your time at Hull. Believe that you can achieve great things if you apply yourself, and surround yourself with the right people, including us. You know, we can, to some degree, we've been through the process. We can provide the advice and tell you where we've made mistakes, and, you know, rely on that. But then also surround yourself with the right people in terms of your peers as well. People who are switched on, people who are also serious about their careers as well. So.
Thanks for that. Manuel. Unmute you. You need to unmute.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah. So I've got two mentors. One is a guy named Sam, and he works with Sherman and Sterling in Abu Dhabi. And the next is a person named Howard, who works in Barclays in the legal team. And I think something that they've both done, or one similar fact is that they've both kind of just given me words of encouragement, and they've both kind of helped me in my development to say, okay, and they've just been real. So saying you're not at the level where like these law firms expect. So here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to do. Here's what the people. Here's who you need to network with. And it's just being real, being frank, being quite honest, and helping me and developing me till I get to the point where I am ready. And even till today, kind of seeing things in me and kind of giving me those words of encouragement, saying, look, yeah, you can do this. This isn't impossible. You've come this far, just this much to go. I forgot, you asked one more question after mental.
What one piece of advice would you give to a student, again, looking at an event like here? What one key takeaway?
Keep doing what you're doing. It didn't feel like too long ago where I was the person in the room and on the other side. And I think many people will resonate with this, and the fact that once you're there, once you get your training contract, not much is different. You're still that same person who was on the other side of the room taking advice. So I think the main thing is, the main two things is keep doing what you're doing, come to events like this, network, and then, well, the second thing is actually network. Network laterally too, because I think that many people forget that they only look at, I want to talk to this partner, I want to talk to this partner. But really and truly, the people that will, I think, devote most of their time to you are the associates, the trainees, and the people, your friends, who will help you read applications and things like that. So yeah, network and keep going.
Thanks for that. Patrick?
My mentor is Jonathan. He was an associate at Freshfields, which I met in my first year at university while I was doing an internship there. I think one of the great benefits of having a mentor like him was having someone who's gone through the process. He can look at my, for example, if I need help with an application, he can kind of give me advice, which I will not be able to get from anyone else. He always kind of give me advice in terms of how to deal with the interview questions. We even do like a run, like a mock interview, and he would tell me where I've gone wrong and how to improve and the things I've done well, so I can actually focus on my weaknesses and actually get better. So I feel that is very, very important for anyone to kind of find a mentor. And I met one through an internship. You could meet one on LinkedIn. It could be any one of us here. I'm happy to help anyone. So, you've got so many resources, as we explained earlier, for you to actually get into contact with people who have been through the game and know what it's like, and will be able to give you advice, and honest advice, which is important. And one thing which I say, I think I will take away from this, if I was in your position, at this stage, whichever stage you're at, my emphasis remains the same. Is literally work hard, focus on your academics, and focus on your career. The first one is self-explanatory. By career, it literally means networking, as we've been discussing, trying to look for opportunities at whatever level you can, and finding mentors and all of those things. So that's one big takeaway I would take from this.
Serah, let's finish off for us.
So I would say, actually, I don't think I didn't really have any mentor. I did take part in a mentor scheme, but I cannot remember the name of my mentor for that. So just don't be me, you can tell. So like they've said, build up a relationship with any mentor you have. Do not be afraid to ask for help. That is something I didn't do. The other people I are close to being a mentor that I developed a relationship with were barristers and sisters that I work with when I was at the SFO and the FCA. We're working as paralegal now. This was, I think, we didn't really talk much about application, but I'll say get help. No matter how good you think your application is, get help. Get someone else to look at it, because trust me, it's not. And that is something that that was probably what I did differently in the application circuit, that I finally got a training contract, in that I got help. There will be people I'll meet, they'll say, oh, connect with me, or keep in touch, and if you need any help, just ask me. But I do not follow up. I don't know what it is with me when it comes to asking for help. I just don't do it. It wasn't until this was the only application year that I did it differently, and I asked for help. And the fact that I got a training contract from that application year, to me, is evidence of how much that help that I asked for really helped me secure a training contract. Because my application, I thought it was good, especially why commercial law. But when I got a barrister to look at it, the way she just pretty much chopped it up, I was so confident in how good my application is. But it wasn't until I built that relationship and approached her, and she was able to look at it for me, that I was able to come up with an application that I was really confident that will be successful with. So it is important. Any mentor that you're giving at the university, reach out to them, get help. That is something that I think you should take away from this session. So I'm trying to think, what else can I say? And oh yeah, I do know there are some questions that hasn't been answered. So I am happy to write up some of those questions, and maybe they could distribute it to people that attended. So in case, and if there is any more questions, we've all put our LinkedIn profile there. Just get help. Honestly, I think that is something you should do not be afraid to ask for help. Do not be shy, or do not be ashamed. Just get help.
Work hard, get help, find your mentor, build your network. Thank you, Serah, Emmanuel, Patrick, Fola. In the space of what 1 month to go from us just doing a few bits of bobs here and there to now, doing this event. That's all I can say is thank you. Thank you for taking the time and the thought. I hope that the students or the people who've been watching this, we've got that balance of, yes, this is what it's like to be Black in these spaces, and the challenges, that the psychological barriers that we have to overcome, which we're still trying to do. But then at the same time, this is exactly how you can think about starting, giving our personal experience with practical advice, because that's what at least I feel like, if I'd had that, to be honest, we all got to the place where we've been. I know there was some questions being like, oh, should I apply? What am I worried about applying in, my second or third year? Run your own race, but at the same time, this is the network that we've tried to build, and we're all building. And the fact that you've taken the time, so thank you for taking the time to spend time with us, means that you are committed to getting into this, starting your career, whether it be legal or non-legal. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, University of Hull. We are pretty much out of time, but again, we've got our LinkedIns there. Hopefully this is the start of a conversation, and have a good evening and rest of the week.
Just really quickly.
Oh, you want to drop one? Yeah, come on,
really quickly. Thank you to Charles. I mean, if you don't know Charles, he's the guy. He's literally been working so hard in the background alongside his training contract. So thank you to Charles for putting this together. Thank you to the University of Hull too.
Thank you all. And that's it.